Hi, I'm Luna Stone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in January. I know it's a little bit overdue, but I just thought that I would start up my channel again and really revitalise it and become more niche. So this year I am starting to make more content about the fact that I'm an author. I am a new author as of January this year, 2025. I'm still getting used to saying that. Yeah, I wanted to create more content around books because it's something that I absolutely love. I love talking about it, and I thought that I'd do my makeup at the same time. So I hope you enjoy it, and maybe some of these books are some that you've read or some that you would like to add to your to be read list. So here we go. So first of all, it's probably important to note that majority of the books that I read are romance books. So if you're not into romance or it's not your favourite genre, then I'm not sure if this video is for you. But if you'd like to stick along with me, then please do feel free, and maybe I could change your mind about romance. Also, before I start talking about the books, I just want to let you know that all of the things that I say today are my own opinion, and I'm going to be letting you know what I think of the books, the star ratings that I give them, and I suppose why as well. But I think what we've got to take into account is everyone is different, and the books that I like, someone else might absolutely despise them. Like, I gave my friend a book recommendation. It's one of my favourite books and I've read it multiple times, and it put her in a reading slump. So this is what I mean. We're all completely different and we're not going to like the same things. So just because I might like something doesn't mean someone else will. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean that, yeah, you know what I mean. So for the books that I've read in January, some of them are going to be books that I've read on my Kindle, and some of them are going to be books that I have read paperback form or hard copy, whatever you like to know it as. A lot of the books that I read are on Kindle because I prefer to read at night. Therefore, because some of them are on Kindle Unlimited, now if you don't know how Kindle Unlimited works, you basically borrow a book on Kindle, and when you're done with it and you want to add another Kindle book to your library from Kindle Unlimited, you basically give the book back. So I don't have the books that I read in January on my Kindle still, unless I bought them. That means that I won't be able to show you the cover from the Kindle. So what I'll do is I will pop the cover next to me as I'm talking about it, if it's one that I don't have in person. Okay, so the first book is a little bit of a self-recommendation, and the reason for this is, I know you're probably thinking, why have you read your own book? Well, I would have had to read it hundreds of times, to be honest, and that's probably not an over-exaggeration either. When I was writing my book, I had to reread, and I edited it myself basically because editors are quite expensive. So I had to constantly reread it with the help of my fiance. And when it came out, the Kindle format was different to how I'd done it. So, you know, perks of being an author, especially a self-published one. So I had to format it to fit Kindle format as well as paperback format. And when I bought the book as an ebook, so I could have the picture on my Kindle as well as the book itself, I noticed that there were issues with the format that did not come up when I'd actually formatted it and submitted it for pre-order. So I had to then go through the entire book to make sure that the format was okay, because originally it really wasn't. So that means that at the very start of this year, when my book went live, which was January 1st, I had to essentially read the entire book. So I have it here with me, obviously. It is called Love in Balance, and I'm very, very happy with how it's turned out. And now that I have reread the book this year, I am happy to say that all of the, well, let's admit it, not all of the typos, because I've read books that have been professionally edited by very famous authors and I can still find typos. So there's probably some in there that people will find as they read, but from when I went through it, the format looks good and the typos that I found are now gone. So Love in Balance is my book baby. It is the first book that I've ever published, and it's the book that has made me an author. It came out this year, 1st of January, and yeah, this is the product. This is the finished book, and I couldn't be happier. I had the most amazing designer, who was actually my old neighbour and a good friend of mine, and yeah, it's turned out beautifully. I, of course, had to give my own book 5 stars because completely biased, but you have to be your own biggest fan. I adore it. I adore the characters. It is a cosy STEMinist novel, and my main character is a mechanical engineer, and she is also disabled as well, and as you can see here, she is actually an amputee and has a prosthetic leg. It is a spicy book, so there is some content that is sexual, but there are also triggers as well. It's a very relatable book and hopefully one that a lot of people will adore. I've got some really good reviews so far, so yay me. The second book that I read this year is called Not Boyfriend Material, and it is by an author called Becky Monson. I actually didn't realise, but last year for my autumn reads I actually read a book by Becky Monson called Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice, and I absolutely loved it. It is a clean, very mild spice, closed door romance, and it is very cosy and very pumpkin-y, so I of course love that because I am an autumn girl through and through. But with this one, I just found it and I thought, oh, this sounds really good, and I didn't even realise it was from the same author, so it was a very nice surprise for me. I actually picked this book up whilst my mum was in hospital. So my mum went into hospital on New Year's Day, which was quite difficult for us as a family. It was just a very difficult start of the year, and so I picked Becky's book up, and of course this book is set in a hospital. It's a kind of friends to lovers kind of book, and these two people work in a hospital, and what I did not realise, which I found incredible, is that it's actually set in the same place as the book I read in October, and the main male character is actually one that was kind of a background character in the Pumpkin Spice and Not So Nice, and I was just freaking out because I didn't realise, so it made me really happy. And also, like, while I was reading it, I was like, why does this character seem so familiar? And then I literally realised, so I was like, oh my gosh, it's him. And that made me super pleased and more excited to read it. As I said, my mum was in hospital at this point, and obviously this is set in a hospital, so the two characters are workers there. It just, I don't know, it made my mum being in hospital kind of a little bit more bearable. I know that might sound really silly, but books for me are a place of escape, and because this was set in a hospital, I was just like, this is kind of making the icky feelings of being in a hospital kind of more bearable, and it was just a sweet take on a difficult situation. So in this book, the two characters, they embark on a journey of essentially doing like almost like a bucket list, but I think it was just for the month. Now honestly, I don't know if people can relate, but once I've read a book, I read another one and then I can't remember the details. All I know is that I loved this book. But yeah, so the main character's friend gives her this like bucket list to complete, and the male main character ends up kind of jumping on the bandwagon. One thing leads to another. I won't spoil it, but obviously there's a happy ending. Yeah, it was just a really lovely book. Like, I kind of want to do this little kind of challenge thing that they did, where it was like a confidence sort of going out of your comfort zone challenge, and I actually want to do it. So Becky Monson, if you have got any ideas for a challenge like that, please fire away, because I'll be there, girl. I gave this book 5 stars because it quite literally helped me whilst I was in a dark place, and it made my time more bearable whilst my mum was in hospital. So yeah, I absolutely love this book and I cannot wait to read more by Becky. The third book that I read in January was another Becky Monson book, and it was called Taking a Chance. Oh my gosh, is all I have to say to that. This book was so unbelievably sweet, and it's a novella as well, so it is a short book. It was a very short read, and it was just so easygoing and lovely. And yet again, it was almost like a main character had like a bucket list kind of thing to complete, but this was caused by something in her life that prompted her to do this. It's made her want to do this bucket list kind of thing because it's something that her sister couldn't do. And I can really relate to this because my best friend passed away when I was 15, and I created something called Happiness Project, and it was basically all the things that I could do that would make me happy and make other people happy, and it ended up becoming like a bucket list of things I wanted to do. And going to prom was one of the things I wanted to do because my best friend Lucy, who passed away, it was something that she really wanted to do. She never got the chance. And so this book, Taking a Chance, it kind of prompted those memories, and so I felt quite a connection to it. The main character embarks on essentially, again, doing things that her sister couldn't do, and her sister always said about taking a chance, and I think that it might have been something that stuck in our main character's head. So she embarks on a journey to extremely tall building. I think it was the Empire State Building. I could be wrong there again. She tries to face her fear of heights. She ends up meeting a dude, and the rest is history. Again, I'm not going to tell you the story because it would just be spoilers. It's a very short book, a very simple story, but one with so much depth and just so much to it for such a short book. At the very end, I was just like, oh my gosh, because it was just so beautiful, honestly. It was like a play on words, and when you read the book you'll know what I mean. And I even told my fiance about it because I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, the title holds a very significant detail in the book, and it's kind of like a when it happens moment. You kind of stop and you kind of realise it's like an epiphany. So yeah, that book was absolutely delightful to read, but I gave it 4 stars. It just felt like it was missing something, but I think because it was a novella, a short story, well, a short book, I think that it's hard to get loads of stuff in, so I don't hold that against Becky. The 4th book that I read in January was called Fall Into You, and that was by Caroline Frank. Now, I actually started reading this book in October or November, and I'm not sure why, but I took a break from it. I think it just wasn't hitting the spot for me at the time. It is set in autumn, hence why I was starting to read it last year, but I think the storyline just wasn't grabbing my attention, and I think I had some stuff going on in my life that kind of just made me sort of withdraw from the storyline, withdraw from the characters. Although I picked it back up in January and I finished it, and it was actually a really nice, sweet story, just one that I didn't quite connect to. For that reason I gave it 3 stars, but that does not mean that I didn't enjoy the book, and it also doesn't mean that it's a bad book. It was just not connecting for me. So yeah, I just didn't enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed other books that I've read. So that is the reason why I've given it 3 stars. It is a kind of brother's best friend, friends to lovers kind of book, and I really like those tropes. So yeah, if you like those tropes, then definitely give it a read. And if you'd like to read something that's giving you kind of cozy autumn, fall, October vibes, it's definitely the one. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, my camera died and I basically had to finish my makeup. I filmed a little reel in between, and so I'm going to finish up the video now. Oh my gosh, I will get better at this, I promise. So the 5th book that I read in January is called The Next Worst Thing, and it is a small town romance. It is closed door and the tropes are brother's best friend and enemies to lovers. I gave this a 4-star, but looking back on it, I probably would give it a 3-star now, in comparison to the other books that I've read. However, this was a sweet little romance book, and it's by Sara Woodley, and she is a fantastic author. I always feel like there is something slightly missing though, and I think that that might be to do with the lack of spice. And sometimes I'll read a book and I'll just think, this could do with some spice in it. But I completely respect authors that do closed door content, and it's completely just down to the reader, isn't it? I did enjoy the story though. I do love a brother's best friend kind of thing, and I do love an enemies to lovers. They're 2 of my favourite tropes. So yeah, it was a really good book. Just something missing, and I don't know what it is. I think it's just me. I think that's what it is, it's just me. But I did really enjoy it, and it could be someone's favourite book, so honestly I do definitely recommend it. The 7th book that I read is actually another one of Sara Woodley's, and it is in the series of Love in Mirror Valley, which The Next Worst Thing was also part of. This one is called The Right Wrong Match, and it was a friends to lovers book. Now again, I love a friends to lovers book, but I also did feel like there was something missing from this as well for me personally, but I still did really enjoy it. It was a sweet kind of easygoing read, and yeah, just one that kind of just makes you feel cozy, and it's quite a unique story as well. So yeah, it's about like a dating app, and then like this misunderstanding happens and these friends end up finding each other in a different sort of situation and see each other in a different light, and one thing leads to another. But there's lots more depth to the story as well, and it kind of includes parts of the first book in the series too, so you kind of feel like you know the characters and feel like you're kind of friends with them, so that's really nice. I did give this book 3 stars as well. I think it's just not up there with some of the books, like the spicy reads that I happen to come across, and it doesn't mean that it's bad, doesn't mean that it's not something I'd recommend, because I absolutely would. It is just completely personal preference. The last book that I read in January was Big Panda and Tiny Dragon by James Norbury. I gave it 5 stars because honestly, if I could give this 10 I would, but the average rating is kind of 5. So this book it's for everyone really. It can be a bedtime story for children, a bedtime story for adults, or just something that you can pick up throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the year, or read it seasonally as well. It is a story that follows Big Panda and Tiny Dragon on their own little journey, and every single page is basically like philosophical. It is something that you can just take away with you every single day, and every single page made my life that little bit better. It brought something to my day that was missing. It reminded me of things that perhaps I'd forgotten in the moment as well. You'll understand if you read the book. I'll just read a very small part of it just to show you what I mean. "I'm too busy to see the flowers right now," said Tiny Dragon. "All the more reason to look at them," said Big Panda, "and they might not be here tomorrow." And I know that it's just something so simple, but it literally, every single page is like that. It's like this philosophical snippet that you need in your life, and it just reminds you of something that perhaps you've forgotten, or something that you're missing, or if you're having a bad day, honestly this is the book to read. And my nieces and nephews have read this. It's been a great bedtime story, and also quite thought-provoking as well for young children who perhaps need some of this philosophy in their lives. And yeah, it's just been brilliant. So James Norbury is an amazing author. He's written quite a few books, and I'm still yet to read the other book that goes alongside this, and his other reads too. But they're very focused on like Zen and sort of Buddhist way of life, and there's a lot lot of like meditation and things like that he's come across in his life, and this book does explain some of that and some of the background as to why he wrote this, and I was so inspired by it, honestly. So if you're looking for an easygoing, cozy read, but something that's also thought-provoking and something that kind of you feel like you need in your life, then James Norbury books are definitely some that I recommend. So those were 5 books that I read in January 2025, and I'm really looking forward to doing a video about books that I've read in February as well. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please do let me know in the comments if you have read any of the books that I have read, or if you would like to, or also just let me know what you have read in January, because I always love a good recommendation. I am mainly into romance books, but I also do like my horror, suspense, thriller kind of thing, and also those philosophical books like Big Panda and Tiny Dragon. It's very confusing. But yeah, so thank you so much if you watched this video, and welcome back to my channel if you're someone who has watched my old videos. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a lovely day.